Hey everyone, welcome to this week's GCN Tech Clinic, where you guys submit your questions involving tech-related questions using the hashtag askgcntech, and we do our best to answer them.
In the allotted time.
In the allotted time with our knowledge at our disposal.
Right, first question is from L Rock Stone. They say, does tyre pressure change much after a long descent using rim brakes and carbon wheels due to heat build-up? Is it enough to change the bike's handling from the top to the bottom of the hill? Right. I'm not aware of any studies that have been conducted using bike tyres, monitoring how temperature affects the pressure in the tyre. But this has been tested in the automotive world. Broadly speaking, a change of 10 degrees C in air temperature in the tyre will equate to the tyre pressure going up between 2 to 3 psi. So let's say, for argument's sake, the air inside your tyre got 50 degrees Celsius hotter than it was, your tyre pressure is only going to have gone up by, 15 psi or something.
Yeah, so it's pretty marginal. And I think to get such a change in temperature, you're doing a big descent. Which, interestingly, I did actually do last year in Peru.
Yeah?
And we were at really high altitude.
Okay.
We were at 3,300 metres, or a bit more than that, actually, 3,700 metres. And we descended all the way down. And we started really cold at a really high altitude and went down into the valley. It was super hot.
So in those extremes, I think it would be enough to make a difference. But broadly speaking, I don't think, unless you're operating like at the absolute maximal limit of what the system's capable of in the first place, you're ever going to run into any problems.
No, yeah, for sure, I agree. It's very, very rare and on a situation where that would be the case.
Okay, next question, over to you.
This is from ChrisBan99. I hang our 4 road bikes vertically on my garage wall, and to save space, they alternate hanging with handlebars up, then handlebars down. I have recently got my first bike with hydraulic disc brakes and wonder if I need to make sure it always hangs handlebars up to avoid any air bubbles migrating from the shifters to the calipers, or doesn't it matter?
What's your thoughts on this first?
So, I don't think it matters. It's a sealed unit.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters which way you hang it, as long as nothing's leaking, or which would mean that it's not been set up properly. You're fine. You can hang it however you want.
I would completely agree with you. If the system has been set up correctly, there shouldn't be any air in it, so it doesn't actually matter which way you hang the bike.
No.
If by chance there is a little bit of air in there, then yes, hanging it with the handlebars at the lowest point would mean that the air could migrate its way through. But like you said, it means you've got a system that's not set up right in the first place.
Yeah, so you need to change it anyway.
Yeah, so there you go.
So yeah, enjoy hanging your bikes.
Yeah, hang them up however you like. And if it causes you problems, well, you've got a brake setup issue in the first place. Right, Alex Salaikin. Silicon? Yeah.
Silicon, yeah.
Why do we not harness a trainer's power to produce electricity? I'm assuming they mean an indoor trainer. Imagine if every watt we spent on Zwift had been converted into usable power. I mean, that is something that I've thought about in the past before.
It's something that I'm always thinking about, even to a small extent of just being able to charge your phone or like your tablet that you're running Zwift on.
Yeah.
To have some sort of basic... I mean, even if you're preparing for the apocalypse, it would be quite nice. You have a trainer in your garage. If
I was preparing for the apocalypse, the first thought wouldn't be, right, jump on Zwift, get a quick ride in.
Do a threshold session.
Yeah. Right. So I've actually, a little while back, I made a video covering similar concept to this because I wanted to see if it would ever be possible to produce enough power through riding an indoor trainer to sort of make your home self-sufficient. And the answer is, you would have to cycle at about 300-ish watts, 24 hours a day with no break in between, and that would just about power a small home if you had a way of harnessing that energy that was 100% efficient, which is basically impossible to do.
So it's very, very difficult.
But I think the technology does exist if we sort of make it back to sensible scale stuff here. There are indoor trainers out there that don't need to be plugged into mains power to work. They do self-generate power, and you can get access to some, but not necessarily all of the features that trainer has. But I think the big sort of reason we don't see this is cost and ease of use. To have a trainer that can generate the power, do this stuff, is going to make it more expensive. They're already quite an expensive product. And what's the first thing you do when you get a new turbo trainer or any sort of product? You want to pair it all up and then get on your bike. if the trainer will only work when you're riding it, you're going to have to be physically pedaling the bike to get it to pair up to everything.
That's the best point, I think, because also like when you're doing, say, a Zwift race, you stop pedaling, your trainer's going to turn itself off. And then you have to like repair, so you have to have like some sort of battery set up to have some sort of background charge. It's getting quite bulky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's getting bulky and expensive, and then you go back to square one and go, should we just plug it in?
Yeah.
Also, I worked out if you rode at about 200 watts for like 5 or 6 hours, you're going to generate enough electricity that's worth about 30 pence. Yeah, probably not worth it. Right, over to you on the next question. Infused coffee roasters.
Infused coffee roasters. I've recently changed over to TPUs, and my road bike can't find anything on correct tyre pressures to use. The Silka and other sites don't have a TPU listing as an option. A few forums say half the pressure of butyl. Is that correct? I was using pressures of around 60-64 psi on a 700 by 30 mil in my butyl tubes. Thank you from Tasmania, smiley face.
That is not right. Do not put half the amount of tyre pressure in your tyres. That has a massive change to make.
No.
So, in case people aren't familiar with a TPU tube, it's very similar to a latex tube in terms of its like rolling resistance, it's lightweight, that kind of stuff like that. So on the Silka tyre pressure calculator, for example, it doesn't specifically list a TPU tube, but it does list, I think it's a latex and a high performance tubeless tyre, isn't it? As well as there's a couple of different options, isn't there? So.
Yeah, so you have 4 different options. You've got your high performance tyre, tubeless or latex. You've got mid-range casing, tubeless or latex. You've got mid-range casing, which is a butyl tube. Then you have a puncture resistant tyre, which is tubeless and latex tube.
So in this instance, to work out a tyre pressure for a TPU tube, you would be using the latex tyre and high performance tubeless tyre setting, because it's ultimately going to require, give or take, the same tyre pressure. The reason it has an impact is all to do with the amount of flex that's possible in the sidewall or casing of the tyre. A more resistant tyre, which is a stiffer sidewall, is going to need slightly less pressure to perform the same. So there you go, basically. Use the tyre pressure calculator and get an accurate pressure gauge as well.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. Right, this one has been sent in by Prispin. I just replaced my GP 5000S tube 32 mil rear tyre after 2,500 wonderful miles and uncounted punctures.
Wow.
Never had to do anything about that, thanks to tubeless scene at least. The race tyres made my bike feel like a new and wonderful machine after the manufacturer's tyres. Should I consider a non-race tyre in the future? How much further can it travel? Is 2,500 miles a reasonable life for a tyre? $20 to $40 doesn't seem worth the loss in cornering grip comfort, but can I go a lot further with a similar experience with a different tyre? I can't say I saw any issues in the cold or wet with the top-end tyre.
I mean, how long's a piece of string, right, as to how long someone's tyres are going to last? It's impossible to tell.
2,500 miles for me is pretty decent.
Yeah.
It's pretty decent. I'd be happy with that. And if you're feeling like the bike's performing well with those tyres, you're happy with it, you haven't had any punctures, speed and performance is good, like I think you've kind of...
It's like you can't, what's that phrase? You can't have your cake and eat it, right? You can't have a high performance product that's lightweight, fast rolling, good grip, but then also have it be really resistant and have like long life inside it, because those two things just don't go together.
No.
So in order to increase one, you've got to sacrifice the other, and then that's why different ranges of tyres exist, so you can sort of fine tune the characteristics of the product for what your needs are, right?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say, like if you do want to experiment, is you could maybe go for a like more high performance orientated tyre in like peak summer months and like really good season when you know your risk of puncture is less. Like around here where GCN HQ is in the winter, I'd often go for a puncture resistant tyre because the roads and the lanes just so bad at the moment.
And they will last a bit longer because they're made of a more sort of durable rubber material, and there's more of it.
Yeah, because my biggest fear is changing a puncture in the cold and wet. No one likes that.
That's the worst, actually.
It's the worst, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, right. Next question is from Nigel Hayes, 4982. They say, the latest trend seems to be TPU tubes. Oh, another one on TPU tubes. They claim to be more resilient, much lighter, and offer a better ride than butyl, but are 5 times the price. What are your thoughts? Should I go first on this?
You go for it.
Okay, so my thoughts are anything to do with your tyres or inner tubes is a very cost-effective upgrade for the amount of money that you've got to spend and the upgrade that you get back in terms of performance. Yes, a TPU inner tube could be 5 times more expensive than a butyl one, but even so, it's still probably in the realms of $20, $30, which is relatively low cost when you consider the price of some parts for your bike. I would say it is a very worthwhile upgrade, and I would recommend it to people as an easy way to change the performance of their bike.
Yeah, there you go.
You got anything different, or are you just quite happy?
I'm happy with that. happy with that response.
It's got the Conor seal of approval.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, right, you go. Next question.
Tommy462, I recently had a tubeless failure where the tubeless tape had broken over one of the spoke holes.
Oh.
Perfect round hole, like that was made from a hole puncher. The weirdest thing, I actually managed to do a 45k ride without losing pressure noticeably. But when I came back to my bike, the tyre was flat, and when I tried to fill it up, the air would leak from the base of the valve hole. So I knew the air somehow got into the rim. So my question is in two parts, what would cause this? The spoke wasn't loose, the tape seemed to be in perfect condition otherwise, but it's not exactly new either. I did recently replace the sealant. I wonder if I put too much pressure in, temporarily reseat the tyre. I lowered the pressure again before riding. When something like this happens, should I try to somehow clean the sealant out of the rim? Most of it seemed to be in the tyre, so I doubt there's much in there, but still.
Well, right. I'm going to take this question here because I have had the almost exact same thing happen.
Okay.
And it was a little while ago. And I think in part they've almost answered their own question in some way, shape, or form here. So the reason that the tubeless rim tape has failed around the spoke hole is because a lot of times when wheels come out of the factory, the rim tape that is installed is often of less premium quality than something you would perhaps buy aftermarket. So there's more scope of it being easier to tear. And when the pressure increases, the tape can sometimes stretch through the spoke holes, and then eventually it will meet a bit of a rough edge and it'll just tear. And therefore that's what's caused the hole in the rim tape by the spoke hole, is the pressure pushing it down.
Okay.
There isn't been a problem with the spokes. It's just a case of like, here's a film of plastic over a hole and the air pressure's forced it through. Now, the cause of this could be that you've overinflated the tyre and the pressure was too high, or it could just be that rim tape wasn't the best quality in the first place and needs replacing with some good stuff. And then in terms of getting the sealant out of the inside bit of the rim, well, yeah, you really need to do that. You don't want that stuff laying around in there, do you?
No.
I think that is going to be a case of really trying to wash it all out with as much water as possible. Hopefully you haven't let it all dry, because if it's dried inside the wheel rim, you're not getting that out in a hurry. And I think fresh tape, reseat it all, and make sure you don't inflate your tyre to a pressure that it isn't designed for.
Yeah, and I'd say I wouldn't worry too much. It sounds like most of that sealant's on your tyre. I'd say minimal amounts ended up inside the rim. But do your best to get it out. But yeah, good answer, Alex. Moving on
thanks.
to Jordan 1991R. With all these waxing escapades, how are you removing the chain? A quick link. I thought these should be used once only.
Yeah, I say, what's your thoughts on reusing quick links? Because I do it. I know you shouldn't all the time, but do you, or do you like a single use only on a quick link?
I'd reuse a quick link.
Yeah. So it's like a real tricky area, I want to say, because as per the manufacturer's recommendation, you should only use the quick link once. Once it's been fitted to the bike, you've undone it. Technically, it needs to go in the bin. However, I feel like common sense should be applied here. And as long as it's got a bit of a resistance and a click to it, I think it's safe to still use.
Yeah,
I think everyone needs to look at this on a case-by-case basis, because they obviously don't know what everyone's quick link is like. But when it feels like it's not got that positive click and engagement to it, it's time to replace it.
Yeah.
Right then, next question. It's our last one for this week, actually. It's from Jason Length 8902. They say, if I have two bikes with pedals on the same cleat system, can I use the same shoes on both bikes, or do I need separate pairs of shoes? Is each pair adjusted specifically to one bike? I'm planning to retire my old aluminium bikes and an indoor trainer and upgrade to a carbon bike for the road. Can I use my old shoes on both bikes without adjusting the cleats, or do I need to get new shoes? Over to you.
No, you can use the same shoes on different pedals. It's going to work exactly the same. I think all you need to be careful of is adjusting the tension on the pedals, which will dictate kind of how much float you have with those shoes. That might differ between the two different pedals. You might notice that, so just tweak that a little bit. But in terms of shoes on different pedals, work away. I had teammates who'd use like one pair of shoes on one bar, one on the other. They'd use left shoe on one bar, right, but it really doesn't matter. And just make sure you're clean cleats are in the similar condition. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's perfect advice, unless you want to specifically have 2 sets of shoes. There's no need for it, is there?
Yeah.
All
The one thing I have noticed is riding in the trainer, your shoes get smelly and very sweaty. So you might want to have an old pair on the trainer. But
That's actually really good practical advice. I like that. Okay, right. That wraps up this week's GCN Tech Clinic. I say it every week. I'm really sorry if we didn't answer your question, but be persistent. Put them in the comments section down below, and hopefully we'll get some in the coming weeks. Love you. Bye.